In this video, I'm going to go over all of the unique settings for the block structural element, which is again our top organizational structure for the page designer. So let's go ahead and navigate over to our website by clicking on View Your Website on the top left-hand side. I'm going to go ahead and add an empty template, and then I'm going to go ahead and add a block. So it's very quick and easy to just add a block. Now, in order to show you the impact of the block settings, I'm going to go ahead and add some content to these columns, and then I'm going to duplicate the container that is holding all of the content within the block. So I'm going to go ahead and add a heading to this particular column. I'm going to call this column 1. And I'm going to duplicate that heading. So I'm going to right click, hit clone, and I'm going to drag that over to the other column, and I'm going to call this column 2. There we go. And then I want to go ahead and duplicate the container that is containing this content. So I'm going to open my navigator over here on the top left-hand side. I'm going to right click on the container, and I'm going to hit clone. So now that container has been cloned. I want to come to the content within that container, and I'm going to call this one column 3 and this one column 4. So now I've got a block that is holding 2 containers, and those containers are identical. They've got 2 rows. They've got 1 row each and 2 columns each, and a heading within each of those columns. So that is what our current structure for this block is looking like. So I'm going to exit out of our navigator just so that we can see what is happening on the page a bit more clearly. I'm going to select my block again, and now I'm going to start playing with the settings. Now, the first setting that we have is our layout setting. But before I start playing around with the layout setting, to make it a lot clearer about what's happening when I change the layout settings, I want to change the size of my block. And this is going to be changing just the minimum height of the block. And you'll see here that it's simply my second setting. So I've got size. There's no settings here. I need to add them by simply clicking on the little plus icon, and then I can change my minimum height. Currently it's set to auto, so it's going to hug the content within the block, and it's going to change depending on how much content is in that block. But I'm going to make a set minimum height so that I can show you how the content moves around within this block. So to do that, all I'm going to do is drag the slider up, and you'll see that the size of my block is changing. So now I've got a bigger block, and again, this is the minimum size. So if you add more content to this block that takes up more space than the minimum height of this block, then the height of the block is going to automatically change to fit that content. But if you want to have a block that's got just a few items in it that you want to have take up more space on your page for design purposes, then this is where you will change that minimum height so that you can have that pretty nice big block that takes up the whole page, but has a form contained within it with a nice image as well. So that is how you will change the minimum height of your blocks. So now let's play around with our layout settings. You'll see that we've got direction, we've got justify, we've got align, and we've got gap. So this is going to change how the content is aligned within the block. Currently, our direction is set to vertical, and this means that our content is going to be vertically aligned. So if I change the justify settings here, you'll see it's currently set to start. So if I change it to center, you'll see that it's been vertically moved to the center of the block. And if I change it to be spaced around, again, it's going to space it around vertically within the block. However, if I change this to be horizontal, you'll see that it is then spaced around horizontally within the block instead of vertically. And if I move it to the start, nothing's happening now because I've just simply got too much content and there's just too much going on there. But let me change it back to vertical. And let's say that it's spaced. Okay, let's leave it at the start. Let's keep it simple. And then I've got my align settings. The align settings are going to change when it's in a vertical mode. It's going to change whether or not it is left aligned or right aligned or center aligned. But this all changes when we set it to horizontal. So if I change it to horizontal, you'll see that my content is now pretty evenly spaced next to each other. It's no longer vertically aligned, so it is now going to stack my content horizontally. So currently I don't have a lot of space, so if I change the justification settings a lot, not much is going to happen because there's no space for that content to move around horizontally. But I can change the alignment settings, and you'll see now that my alignment settings have changed to be aligned at the top or aligned at the bottom of the block. So that's what's going to happen when you align content horizontally within your block. So let's keep it vertical, and then I'm going to go ahead and just align this to the start, keep it centered, and then you'll see that we have our gap. So let me go ahead and apply some backgrounds to these columns. So I'm just going to come to the settings, and I'm simply going to change these are the heading settings. I want the column settings. So there we go. I'm going to add a background. That one can be blue. This one can be a different color. So let's make it green. This column can also be a different color. Let's make it yellow. And this last column can be that pinky color. Cool. So now again, I'm going back to my block, and I'm going to come here to the gap. And if I apply a gap, you'll see that there is now a gap being applied between the containers on the page. So if I click on the column here and I navigate to the row and I navigate to the container by clicking up, then you'll see that this container has been separated from this container. Again, I'm going to open the navigator. So this container has a gap between that container. So any content placed within your block, you'll then be able to space out with an even gap. So again, I'm going to click on that block, and you'll see that I've set a gap of 57 pixels. So that gap is spacing out the containers evenly within my block. But it's not spacing the columns because those columns are nested within a row. So if I want to change the spacing of the columns, I would need to go to my row settings and do the same thing. All right, so let's stick with our block settings for now. Okay, so we then have our spacing, and this is going to be our margin and our padding. And the margin is going to apply spacing around the outside of the block. So let me actually add a background to the block, which, very handy dandy, is right there. It's the next setting. So I'm just going to add a background, and let's just make it a nice pale blue so that we can see what's happening. But you'll see that when I added that margin, that there is now 50 pixels of space being added around the outside of this block. So again, if I remove that and I say 0, there's now no spacing outside that block. But if I, again, add that, you'll see that that spacing is added around the outside. So that is the margin spacing. It's going to add space outside the element. All right, then we have our padding, and it's currently mixed, but I can go ahead and change that to be 100. 100, there we go. And so now on the inside of the block, there's 100 pixels of padding all around the edges of the inside of the block. But again, it said mixed previously, and I can actually change the spacing per side of the block itself. And I can do this for both margins and padding. So if I click on edit next to it, you'll see that I am then able to change the padding per side. So I can go ahead and change things as much as I like, and it will change uniquely on each side of the block. So I could be an absolute nightmare of a person and just have very uneven spacing. So you'll see there that I've got uneven, wonderful spacing. All right, but I'm going to go ahead and leave that all alone and just put that as not 0, let's just leave it as 50 as well. All right, then we have our background settings, and we briefly touched on those by simply adding a color to the background. And so you can, of course, add a colored background. You can change the opacity of that background. You can change the color of it. You can add in your specific codes that you have for your brand colors. So all of that is doable. You can also add image backgrounds. So here we've got an image background. If you want to upload your own image, you would simply click on the file icon. You would be able to upload your own image or choose one from Unsplash. So if I want to have a cute cat, for example, in my background, I would be able to do that. So let's go ahead and choose this little dude. Now I've got a cute cat as the background of this block. I can also go ahead and change the positioning of this picture. So I can make it left top aligned. I can make it center top aligned. Obviously not much is changing right now because the image is taking up pretty much the whole block. I can change the size of it if it's auto, if it's a cover image like it currently was, if it's contained within the block, or if it is a custom size. You can go ahead and make a custom size for your image and you'll be able to change the size and width. You can obviously also go ahead and make this a lot bigger. So if you've got 1000 by 1000, there you go. I'm going to go ahead and leave that as a cover image. You then also have your repeat settings, so you can repeat it in specific ways. So let's say if it's contained within the block, you would then have your repeat settings. So you can repeat it along the x-axis, you can repeat it along the y-axis, you can simply just repeat it, or you can have a space between repeats, and you can have a round repeat as well. So I'm going to leave this again as not contained as a cover image. Oh, and we've got our round repeat. So there's an example of how that works. No repeats. Okay. Then we have whether or not this is fixed. So if I say yes, this is a fixed image, and I'm going to go ahead and just duplicate this block. Actually, no, I'm not going to duplicate it. It's not a good idea. I'm going to add an empty block. And you'll see that when I scroll, let me make this block a bit bigger so that we can get the full effect of this block's settings. So if the image is fixed, you'll see that when you scroll, that image isn't going to go anywhere. The content will scroll over it, but the image will stay still. So that is the fixed background setting. And then we have our overlay setting. So you can add an overlay to your background image and you can change the color, you can change the opacity. So let's go ahead and say that it's black and the opacity can be a little bit lower than that or a little bit higher, whatever you want. So that is the last background setting that we have, is the overlay setting. And then we have our visibility, and this is going to help you when it comes to designing your pages for different devices. So if you don't want this block to be visible on a certain device, you can go here to your tablet view and you can say, nope, it's not visible on tablet. And then you can go to your mobile view and you can say, yes, it is visible there. And you'll see that on your tablet view, it's not visible, but on your desktop and your mobile view, it is visible. So that is where your visibility is going to come into play. It's going to help you edit the way your pages look on different devices. So that is what the visibility setting does. Now you're going to see a lot of the same settings for rows and columns and containers. So now you've got a good overall understanding of how those work. In the next videos, I'm going to go into more detail on the specific settings for the rest, because there are some different settings for each different organizational structure. But there's one more thing that I want to point out to you, and it is here with our layout. You'll see that there is a little plus icon next to our layout, much like with our size. So if I delete the sizing here, you'll see that there was that plus icon there, and I needed to change the size. I needed to add that setting before I could change the size. Same sort of thing going on here with the layout. If I hit the plus icon, you'll see that I've got wrap and reverse. So I can wrap my content, I can add that setting, and I can add my reverse setting. So if I want to reverse the content within my block, I can do that. If I want to wrap the content within my block, I can do that as well. Now I'm going to get into more detail on wrapping specifically in a future video, specifically our containers video. So don't stress about that too much right now, but those are two extra advanced settings for advanced designers that you can add to your pages. So I'm just going to leave those as no and actually go ahead and disable those settings for now. So those are now officially all of the settings for the blocks in the Page Designer. In the next video, we're going to be going over our settings for rows. I'll see you there.